wanted to discuss. We didn't carry
History
on much
lesson.
on the history.
No,
Yeah.
we didn't. And so I started to go through our old videos
Yeah.
to make notes so that I can put them on the timeline.
Yeah.
And
So we must be very specific on
must
what
be very specific.
Yeah.
Okay, what I want to know is get a sense of an idea of the family line, the family tree, if you will,
Of the gods.
of the gods. Yes,
Okay. Anu is the father.
right.
Then he's got two sons, Enlil and Enki.
Enki.
Yeah.
Enki.
Yeah. Enki.
Who's his
yeah.
wife? Or she doesn't know.
Yeah.
She's some bitch.
No, his wife is also quite, how can I say? It's like Mamu or something. That's where the word mother or Ma comes
okay.
from. So, but I mean, it's the base of all our language. Comes from that early period.
Okay.
In every language, not just how can I say, English or
Right.
Greek or Hebrew. It's all,
All language.
yeah, all
Okay. Okay. And so his kids.
Yeah, the kids had their own sons. Enlil had two sons
Noah.
and a daughter. No,
sorry,
They were
okay.
still purebred.
Okay.
Gods, yeah. And Enki had Marduk and I forgot the other guy. That's very difficult to, the Sumerian names, but
Okay.
they all had their own little families. But they also had, on Enki's side, they also had human families.
Okay.
And that's where Noah comes from.
Okay.
Enki had Adam, or Adamu, which is the second Adam, which he conceived with one of the early humans, babies.
Okay.
And the same with Eve. She was also conceived by Enki.
Right.
Yeah. So Cain and Abel and all of those are related directly
Okay.
to Enki.
Okay.
So the whole Jewish line that we try to describe in the Bible, if you strictly adhere to that, Enoch, Noah, what's the guy's name? Josiah, all the old guys, all the
Okay.
old prophets, all of them come directly from that line.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think okay, as far as I'm concerned, that's the Jewish line.
Okay.
All right? But in that line, where the split came is where Marduk came back with the 200 astronauts or angels.
Right.
Okay. They come and they stayed in the Cedar Mountains, which was a cooler and a nicer place to stay.
Right.
And they married people, humans, and they made their own race, and that's where
That's the Aryan race came
Yeah.
from. Okay.
So that's the split. Marduk was a total rebel. He didn't care for the other gods. He gave his people all the knowledge, and his people were his family, with other words.
Right.
Where the other gods kept their slaves, which we were, dumb. You understand what I mean?
Right.
They didn't give them any knowledge.
So they were just happy doing what they were doing. They didn't know any
just
better.
had to work in the
Yeah.
mine.
Yeah.
So between all of these created races, there also was primitive people that what I would describe as maybe early experiments with their bioengineering that the gods made, and some of these guys escaped and ran away and lived in the bush. You understand what I mean? Some went to places where the gods never went, so the Eskimos and those kind of guys, all dispersed over the earth and into corners of the earth, and that's how humanity was created and dispersed.
Okay.
But if you look at all the high civilizations, they all happen along the center band of the globe. Central band of the globe. These guys were very strictly controlled by the gods.
Okay.
The further they got away the less the.
Okay.
So
okay.
they were, it's like escaped slaves or whatever.
So guys in Australia were
Yeah,
pretty
but
far
they were
from.
Fuck, yeah, nobody,
okay.
those guys were far from the gods, and the gods didn't
Right.
fuck with them.
Right.
So.
And didn't they use? I mean,
Oh yeah, but the gods came there. If you look at the Australian folklore, I mean, they also have this whole story about the gods.
Yeah.
And the flood.
the Aboriginal.
The
Yeah.
Aboriginal, So, I mean, it's very central. I mean, from wherever they originated, that story came with them. You
Okay,
understand?
yeah.
They weren't just. I think they came through the Polynesian islands. You know, when the sea was much lower in one of the ice ages or whatever. But I mean, they did make it there one way or another. And so that's why they have the same central theme as all the other peoples all over the world. If you go to the Native Americans, they have a very, very how can I say, detailed flood myth in their creation
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so all these points on the ley line.
Yeah, but obviously the meteorite impacts were in the Americas and in the Atlantic Ocean. There were 6 meteorites that hit the Earth.
Okay.
If they take modern study can tell us that that's what caused that huge tsunami effect and everything. But that's why the Native Americans have a fire. The flood and the fire. It was a big fire first and then the flood. So when the meteorite struck, it was like a big explosion that burned the shit out of them, and then the
Did anyone
clouds
survive?
Came. Some of they went in deep caves and survived. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how would? Okay. That's interesting because.
But how could they tell it if they didn't survive? You
Right. Well,
understand?
yeah, exactly. So those that survived,
Yeah.
how did they describe what they saw? I mean,
They saw the stars fall on Earth, and and they saw the 6 stars because the other guys couldn't see the stars. I mean, it was on the other side of the globe.
Right.
Yeah, but the other guys just had the tsunami wave that hit them. You know, so
okay.
it's
Okay.
kind of a practical story. If you really simplify it.
Yeah.
Oversimplify it, it makes fucking sense. You know.
For sure. For sure.
Well, with our knowledge now of tsunamis and meteorites, and we understand now that the huge devastation that will be caused by a meteorite impact on Earth. I mean, it'll throw a dark cloud, and the cloud, it will rain for days,
Yeah.
and it will cause shit everywhere, and the tsunamis will hit everywhere, and places will flood, and oceans will go dry. And
So is this? Do you believe that this is something that's going to happen without
Again,
question, or it's just a matter of time, or
yes, I think so.
there's no way to tell when it's going to happen?
Nobody knows when. The gods knew when because they could do the math and plot the heaven
charts,
bodies.
yeah.
So they could figure that out. So they went into orbit and they watched all this from their chariots, and they describe it.
Huh.
Yeah.
So when we look at the sky now, here I don't see it as much. But when we look at the sky from home, it's almost like we can see the faces of gods. Huge, you know. You look at the sky, you can see cartoon characters, or you can see faces, or you can see.
Okay, you're talking about where there's Orion and those.
Is it like just is it that in the daytime we see clouds instead of nighttime constellations? The constellations are what they are, but when it's
They're there
daytime,
anyway. In daytime, you just can't see them, no?
yeah.
Okay, but if you now look at what happens with, you know, the dog stars, Sirius, and the whole constellation of, I think it's Canis Lupus and all
Yeah,
of that.
yeah.
If you go and you go and all into that, you'll see that humans have forever tried to make sense of the heavenly bodies.
Yeah.
Okay. And we've been given a lot of knowledge, but we have lost it over time and then gained it again. So what happens is that, for example, what will happen if we have a meteorite impact today on the central band of the Earth or the Atlantic Ocean? It'll wipe out all the knowledge that we have.
Right.
Everything that's stored on computer disks will be lost for all entire civilization forever. It's not like clay tablets that would
Right.
survive.
Right.
Not like rock inscriptions that would survive. All of this flimsy civilization that we have now and think is very fucking special will be gone.
Yeah.
In the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And me and you and Ani will sit there and fucking grind mealie meal and make satsa and eat meat. And we will, if we survive now, and we will talk about shit. Remember when we had satellite phones and cell phones?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
guys, we flew over from America and hunted with you guys, and our kids would run around there and think, fuck, man, what's wrong with these old people? Because they are back on donkey carts and back to the basics, like what you've seen here.
Yeah,
This was a modern civilization is back in the Stone Age.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way. So they would look, and in 3 generations, those stories will be told as if it was fables and myths.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So you have to understand that there's been quite a few bottlenecks genetically on the human population. The floods, disease, the big plague,
Yeah.
and other plagues that we don't even know about in the early times brought bottlenecks and left a certain part of the genetics, and that would repopulate the earth.
Okay.
Except
So it's like purifying, not purifying, but like a culling sort of.
it's a culling thing,
Okay.
and I think they have been doing that through the ages and culling a lot of people, and they will do it.
So is this the gods doing that, or the gods
big wars
manipulate
are
the genetics, right?
The
Yeah.
big wars are the same.
Okay.
So you have to understand that the big wars have always been the gods that created it. It's just lately we're not so sure who causes the shit anymore.
Yeah.
So you have to, if you want to go into your conspiracy thing, that would give you a better, I would say, a more something to investigate, because that is the real line of conspiracy.
Yeah. But it's not even really conspiracy.
It's just an interference,
Yeah.
outside interference.
Yeah, conspiracy. When you talk about conspiracy theories,
No,
we
yeah,
talk about
people-
who killed JFK.
Yeah.
That's a conspiracy theory.
No.
But all the other, I think, a lot of the rest of it isn't so much conspiracy theory. It's fact. It's just that we didn't
Don't understand
know
it.
about it. We didn't understand it, or we weren't given all the information.
Exactly.
So they're not even. Conspiracy is such a. It's a
wide
wrong
term.
word.
Yeah.
It's just it's not
Yeah,
really.
It can be different.
But it's just what people sort of lump it under, because it's
Yeah.
not common thought. It's not
Yeah.
the mainstream.
Nobody thinks like that.
Right.
So okay. So you have to. But I do believe that there is still a common thread from the beginning of humanity to now. Why would we lose it if it was so important for that first
Yeah.
250,000 years?
Right. Well.
Why would it disappear now in 6,000 years?
Yeah.
It's bullshit. It's still there. It must be there. It's just that we don't look at time the same way that
The
our
gods. Yeah.
progenitors look at time. So
Right. Like
we
1
wanna-
second to us is like,
yeah, it's like
100 years or vice
They
versa.
describe it. I mean, I've done the math.
What were those books you were telling me about?
Okay, you have to get all the Zechariah Stitchen books.
Okay, Zachariah Stitch.
Yeah.
Okay.
And your Earth Chronicles and everything, and that talks about the pre-creation, the stories that the gods told the people of how Earth was created.
Okay.
And I think it's Tiamat or something was the planet, and it broke up into, it had an impact and it broke into, and that's how the moons and some of the planets in our solar system was created.
Okay.
But that's a whole story on its own. But you have to read it. You have to
Yeah.
understand what it looks like out there, and then you read it, and then you can see that it's basically exactly the same as we have now seen with the Hubble telescope.
Okay.
The debris and shit that's
Yeah,
still
yeah.
left over from this huge event is still very much visible
Yeah.
and evident,
Yeah.
And then it will tell you about the problems on Nuburi That's also a big story. It's a beautiful story actually.
Okay.
And then it will tell you of how the brave explorers went from Naburi and how they failed and to get the gold that they needed, and then how Inca went and he got to the point where he found Earth, and now we navigated to Earth through the meteorite belt and through a few other obstacles. It's a very detailed story.
Okay. So is there a way, okay, say there, if a person figures out the mathematical computation or coordinates for an event to happen, can that be thwarted in any way? Or like when we
They
had
couldn't
that,
stop it. They couldn't stop the calamity.
okay,
They could only, they have to decide what they wanted to save and what they wanted to let die.
okay,
So they had not the power to. We think that the gods brought the calamity. The only calamity that the gods brought was the Sodom and Gomorrah event, which was directly linked. The gods wanted to destroy the Babylonian Empire, and or the early Marduk Empire, not the Babylonian Empire, but the one that Marduk started with his astronauts.
right,
And they bombarded them with this forbidden weapon that they had, which caused this cloud, a sickening cloud,
okay,
that let people's teeth fall out, and women gave birth to monsters. So it's obviously radioactive.
yeah.
And it was a huge calamity, and humanity describes it, and the gods describe it in those things. But you'll read it, So
Yeah.
that was what the gods, the destruction that caused those deserts in Central East Europe. So yes,
Are the gods immortal? I mean,
I think they're not. I think they live a very long time,
Okay.
but they did go away.
okay,
Because there's stories of what's the woman? I forgot her name. Going to the Temple of Sin and taking his jacket or something that was left by him and crying for years. And then one day through the jacket came the answer. So they had some device
okay.
on his, like an astronaut suit or something,
Right,
that she could get back and talk to him.
huh?
A lot of that stories is also around. So you must look at it at a little bit more of a pragmatic way,
Right.
not into this fabulistic.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Like what came of Marduk? Is he, or
Yeah,
do
you
we
see,
think
he was. They tried to kill him, and I think they succeeded in killing him in the end. And then, because that's also the story of Osiris in Egyptian. It's a similar line. And his mother was so, his wife was so distraught that she cut off his phallus, his penis, and she grabbed the penis and she made a son for him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so she took his genetic
Right.
sperm or whatever
Yeah,
she could,
yeah.
and she trying to recreate him. You understand?
Yeah.
And she also took him to the gods and said that they have to revive him. She took him to her superior gods and said they have to revive him. But that is a lot of detail that I didn't really get into, because for me it goes about this little central line of the story. If you don't need all this other nonsense to know, to just find where the story takes you. It's a different way.
Yeah.
But there is so much there, information about they used like vessels to mix the life essence in which they created. It's like
Vessels, you mean like test tubes or
test
like
tubes,
okay.
yeah. And it's depicted, it's drawn and written about, and it's so. If we understand what you do now, then that makes sense then,
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is.
What about wormholes? Do you think wormholes exist? Like ways to get through our galaxy into other galaxies or other times and things like that?
What I'm trying to tell you is that there has to be, if you look at it in physics,
Mm.
then it makes it mathematically possible. Okay?
Yeah.
But I don't think we have to really go to that extent to explain what we are or where we are.
Yeah.
It's much more simple than that,
Yeah.
because it's got to do with straightforward technology,
Yeah.
straightforward people,
Yeah.
straightforward everything. There's nothing weird and wonderful about this. So we don't have to go to the next dimension. Yes,
Right.
it is there, or it's possible that it is there, but I think you make it's a big mistake to confuse this with the history of humanity.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah. No, I'm not. I'm just.
yeah,
It was just a side question, but
yeah. I think that it's something that we will get to at the moment we have enough understanding,
yeah.
or we will never get to if we have another bottleneck
Yeah.
as far as technology, and it destroys everything and we start all over again.
But don't you think people's interest in, figuring out the whole wormhole time travel thing, it's almost like we're jumping ahead of ourselves and looking at something that's not even like, not that it's not relevant, but it's like we're missing a lot of what we should be thinking about by overstepping that. You know what I mean? Like not looking at the simple, straightforward way,
Yeah.
just trying to bypass it and,
Yeah, there's always people like that. There's always been people like that. If you now go back and Jules Verne wrote all these books about space travel and traveling under the sea and submarines
Yeah.
and whatever. And he wrote that in the late 1800s. There was no
Yeah.
and everybody thought it was such fucking way wonderful. And today, that's reality. So let's say those wormhole guys and the guys that want to do time travel and all of those are the Jules Vernes of today,
Mm-hmm.
and that the fiction today will be very much fact in a couple of years, because we have come to the point where there is so much information available out there, and it's available to everybody,
Yeah.
and technology are developing in so many different ways, it's difficult to control by governments anymore. It used to be very strictly controlled,
Yeah.
but it's a total free-for-all now, and everybody that gets a solution, he gets the benefit. So it's growing every day so fast that it's almost impossible to keep up with it. So if you look at what's happening at cutting edge military technology today, is that the guys that have been in the business and the lead trend leaders for 10 years are behind, because they are still studying every day, but the
Yeah.
technology is changing so fast that the whole host of knowledge that they have is not viable anymore. It's not
Right. Right.
You have to have a completely new understanding, a completely new set of and paradigm of facts before you can even think of where you have to go.
Yeah.
So it's become so critically important that for people to keep up with the curve. I think it's going to become more and more difficult, and we will have to engineer genetically our ability to use our brains to a bigger extent, because we cannot. Technology is already surpassing us.
Yeah.
Let's say we have a 10-year technology capability now, but in every 10 years it gets halved.
Yeah.
So in 30
Yeah, 'cause they don't want- yeah.
in 30 years you will only know what's happening cutting edge maybe for a year, and then you would have lost
Right.
it so fast. And the moment we lose that, we can our human, our real ability, or our capability is so far surpassed by the technical things. Then we get into the problem of where would robots and other shits take over
Yeah.
certain functions. Yes, they will. They already are. We already have unmanned aeroplanes. I mean, we have aeroplanes that think for themselves. I
Yeah.
mean, we have aeroplanes that are aerodynamically not possible to fly by a human because there's so many alterations that has to be done in one moment to be able for the plane to react in a certain way that
a human couldn't handle that.
they have to take the instructions so that the human can simplify the instructions so that the human.
Hi.
Stuur mij aan.
Laten we het
Dat is het. Geniet het.
Bye. Where's he going?
Nobody's in a hurry.
We should be in a hurry, huh? No.
No, we're waiting for Arnie and the generals.
Oh, didn't they go ahead of us?
No, they went that way and
Oh.
checking one more road.
Oh. Okay.
So I think there's going to be a real challenge for humanity to use all the technical capability that we've created and turn it into something that we stay in control of. Remember,
But what if, I mean, aren't we, essentially
not-
we're not really in control of it because the gods are in control of it. So we can
No.
advance as far as we want,
Yeah,
but
but
they
the god-
might make us take a step back.
Yes, they will.
And so
I believe that.
Yeah, I believe that too.
Yeah.
You know, that it's not, you know,
Historically, they've
whatever
always
path
done
we're
that.
on,
Yeah.
if we're not on the right path, someone's going to knock us off so that we can get on the right path. And I don't know after how many times they try,
Yeah.
if we'll actually get on the right path, because I don't know if we know, I don't know if we're capable of knowing what that right path is. If there is even a path they want us on, you know, I don't know.
I think this is just an ongoing experiment.
Yeah.
I think it's that we're all sitting in this thing. We've been made. It's like a bunch of hamsters, and they just see what's happening. You know. And every now and then they will stir the pot to see
What comes,
what comes
yeah.
out. You know.
Yeah,
So I think it's very simple.
interesting, yeah.
So it's a very bad paradigm, but doesn't spell much for us. But you know,
I mean, we're slaves to begin with.
Yes.
That was our purpose, so really now it's just like we're kind of just like play toys for,
no, we're still slaves. In many different ways. We
Right.
don't realize it, but we're still slaves.
right.
We still work for gold. We still mine for gold. We just have other incentives to create and
Right.
get it to where it needs to go. You know,
Yeah.
So no, I think it's pretty relevant. And
So those ley lines are like where the pyramids and all that, those are all launching pads?
yeah, I think so. And I think everywhere you went, because they were so strongly built,
Yeah.
nothing that thousands of years could throw at them could destroy them. You understand?
How are we getting the gold to the gods?
That I don't know.
Oh,
It can be the UFOs that we see, which are commonplace, and the size of those UFOs are incredible.
yeah. Yeah.
There is a lot of very serious people that have, let's say, reputable people,
Yeah.
pilots, and other people that have seen
Yeah.
these things. It's not just fools like
Have you
me
heard of
and
the
you.
have you heard of the Disclosure Project?
No.
It's awesome. That's exactly what it is. Is this ER physician named Stephen Greer,
Mm.
who, I mean, totally reputable, normal guy,
Mm.
was seeking answers on, you know, extraterrestrial life, if you will.
No.
And he put together a lecture from like 50 or 20 or 50 of the top clearance guys, you know, pilots and military aviation and
Yeah.
naval aviation and astronauts and whatnot. And after a certain number of years, they were allowed to speak about the things that they saw. And the transmissions are there, the audio, you know, like
Yeah,
when
yeah.
they're it is awesome. And it's like a, you know, hour-long video.
Yeah, you must send it to me on internet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's
Maybe
fascinating.
yeah.
Because that's really one of the things that opened the door for us to look at it, because finally they were allowed to talk about these things.
Yeah, but yes, with the background that you now have, that would be much more sensible. You understand
Yeah,
what I mean?
totally.
It would make a lot more
Totally.
sense. Yeah,
But that's kind of where the whole thing started. That's
Yes.
what it was with that. It was like, wow, okay, let's really take a look at this stuff and see, you know. So it's not like it was a bunch of
But
quacks
you
in
get
a
those
room.
books, man, and you'll read them.
Yeah,
And it will-
definitely.
because there's a big part of the story of Israel also
Okay.
that's told in Abraham and how he was like a general for the gods and he fought in the wars of the gods. It's a different story, you know?
Right, right.
And a beautiful story, which I think you must read if you're interested in things like that. Most people don't care. I mean, it's like CJ said, "Oh, you guys are mad. I don't care.
Oh,
I
he's
just
fucking
believe in my fucking religion or whatever the deal is." And
Yeah.
that's cool.
That's fine
I'm
for
not.
him.
We're not trying to convert him into
Yeah.
some other kind of religion. This
Yeah.
is not to do with religion. This
Exactly.
has got to do with the history of humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah, then the other guys that you can read, which will be quite interesting for you, I think, is the Book of Enoch by
Yeah.
by Lomas and Knight.
Yeah.
It's a modern translation.
Yes.
They are two Masons that wrote and the Book of Uriel. Sorry.
Okay.
Oh,
There's also a book of
Uriel's-
Enoch.
yeah, I think there is a Book of Enoch.
Yeah.
And there's Uriel's machine. The original Book of Enoch that was found in the Akkadian, not the Akkadian, what's this Coptic
Oh.
church in North Africa in 1927 by some Mason.
Okay.
But in our rituals, a lot of the book is already there. So that from before 1927. So we had the book, but I don't know, you know. But I got that original translation, the original script and the translation from a guy in Zimbabwe, Harold Collett, and I read it. It's quite an interesting story of how he interacted with the gods and how he was picked up and taken and brought back and taught. And these guys take all of those and translate it and retranslate it and brings it into
Current.
but they
perspective.
you have to understand a lot of math to understand, because what they're doing is mathematically quite complicated, because the way Enoch described the angel Uriel when he goes there, he describes the latitude and the longitude by the setting of the sun and you know, so if you do that and you take it like, you know, with a sextant,
Yeah.
you can find where he is. So that puts him almost at Stone Age.
Is that what the sextant is for? Like, from the Mason standpoint, is for calculation of.
No, there's no sextant in Masonic symbolism, but there's a square and a compass.
Compass.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but it's a symbolization of. It's the symbolization of all knowledge.
Right.
Yeah, so they have to strive to if you couldn't understand it, at least you have to look after it.
Sure.
So that's why they, in the Middle Ages, they had safe houses where they kept these scientists and free-thinking people and safe from the church. That's why the church of the Roman Church hates them, because they were constantly blocking them from destroying people like Leonardo da Vinci. And,
Right.
All of those really
Great thinkers.
great things,
Yeah.
you know. So, and that's how they brought the total momentum of what they did was brought the Renaissance and the end of the Dark Ages, and eventually the fall of the Roman Church in that it lost its total control over everybody. Yes, there's a lot of other upsprings and stuff that happened, but I mean, it broke the chain that bound people from knowing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We can sit here and discuss this now only
To a point. Yeah.
for the reason that we are not anymore bound by the
Right.
limitations that's
Right.
put on us by all our religion and church, you know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna drop you here.
Okay.
And I'm gonna go and offload dogs.
Okay.
And do all of that, and then we
Thank
come back.
you.
We can carry